All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
So made.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Guerra.
Second.
Second by Mr. Villarreal. All those in favor?
Aye.
This board will recess the closed meeting to consider matters pursuant to Texas Government Code 551-071. We'll be back shortly.
Okay. No action. What's it called? Okay. Okay, no action, yeah, okay. No action was taken in executive session that needs to be reported on. Can I get an motion to open the open session again?
I make a motion we reconvene as an open general session.
Second.
Okay. Session is open. We will now go to agenda item number 3. Consideration, 2? Okay.
General Manager.
General Manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, 2 items, financial report, and also I'm going to ask Eduardo Camperano to talk a little bit on our strategic planning process going forward. Mike?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Mike Perez. I'm the accounting manager for the Brownsville PUB. I will be presenting the financial statements of the Brownsville PUB for the month of August 2006. On page 2, we have the adjusted gross revenue summary presenting the monthly and year-to-date revenues. For the month of August, the net operating revenues were $17,753,954. And for the year to date was $170,064,207. After adding in other revenues, the interest from investments, other non-operating income, the gross revenues for the month of August 2006 were $19,126,123, and the year-to-date gross revenues were $179,093,743. Once the fuel and energy, wholesale energy expenses and Southmost expenses are deducted, the adjusted gross revenues for the month ended August 2006 are $10,287,131, and the year-to-date adjusted gross revenues were $93,923,047. On page 3, we have a summary of Brownsville PUB's obligations. The O&M and non-operating expenses for the month of August 2006 were $3,919,534. The year-to-date total expenses were $38,353,003. After deducting or after adding the debt service obligations, the total requirements for the month of August 2006 were $5,741,825, and the year-to-date total requirements were $59,739,563. By reducing these obligations from the adjusted gross revenue and after reducing the City of Brownsville usage, the total available balance to surplus for the month of August 2006 was $4,155,191, and the year-to-date balance available to surplus was $29,872,115. The city's and PUB share of the surplus was $5,080,936 and $24,791,179 respectively. On page 4, we have the Brownsville PUB surplus summary. As you all recall, the ordinance requires reserve accounts. Therefore, on a monthly basis, the PUB is transferring funds to meet these reserves. The year-to-date allocations were $24,791,179. For the month of August 2006, PUB has allocated approximately $3.5 million towards these reserves.
John, Leonardo, as our reserves surplus improves, when would it be strategically beneficial to file for a new bond rating?
We're looking at doing some conference calls with some of the rating agencies later on this month or early November once we have some good final year-end numbers. And one of our goals is to test the water for potential rating upgrade. May not be this year, but maybe perhaps next year. Try to get a better understanding of where they would like for us to be next year.
Because we can save a lot of money.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
The remaining items in this presentation are summary graphs comparing last year's year-to-date actual, this year's budget, and this year's year-to-date actual. The 2006 actual net operating revenues of $170.1 million exceeded the budgeted amounts by $27.9 million, a 20% change, and $37.1 million from last year's actual. This is a 28% increase. The 2006 gross revenues of $179.1 million exceeded budget by $30.9 million, a 21% change, and $40 million from last year's actual, a 29% increase. Now, the year-to-date adjusted gross revenues of $93.9 million, after reducing the fuel energy, wholesale energy, and Southmost expenses, exceeded budget by $5.8 million and $17 million over last year's actual. On page 6, the fuel and energy year-to-date expenses of $67.1 million exceeded budget by $11.8 million, a 21% change, and exceeded last year's actual by $12.3 million, a 22% change. The O&M year-to-date expenses of $35 million were under the budgeted amount by $2.3 million. This is a 6.6% favorable variance. The year-to-date actual expenses exceeded last year's actual by $2.9 million.
What do you attribute the estimate there being less actual on your
The
operating
actual-
maintenance?
Under the budget?
Yeah.
It's better planning, a lot cutting back on excess expenditures,
Keep doing it.
so.
Been good. That doesn't mean you have to spend the 37.3.
Exactly, you don't have to,
budget.
what's been budgeted.
Good for you. Thank you.
On page 7, reports the year-to-date surplus available of $29.9 million, which has exceeded the budget by $7.1 million, a 31% change, and exceeded last year's actual by $10.1 million, a 51% increase. The surplus available to PUB represented $24.8 million, which exceeded budget and prior year's actual. The surplus available to the city of $5.1 million was actually below the budget amount by $100,000 and exceeded prior year's actual by $1 million. The graph on page 8 represents the utility contribution balances to the surplus fund. Electric contributed $22.43 million to the surplus, which was over the budget amount by $5.89 million, a 36% change. Water contributed $2.67 million to the surplus, an increase of $60,000 from the budgeted amount. And
Water rights are
wastewater,
not included in here, right?
no. The wastewater contributed $4.77 million to the surplus, a $1.1 million increase over budget. Overall, the percentage contributions to the surplus by electric, water, and wastewater were 75.1%, 8.9%, and 16% respectively. The graph on page 9 summarizes the electrical monthly consumption. August consumption was 118.5 million kilowatt hours, a 2.7 million kilowatt hour decrease from the month of July 2006, a 2.2% decrease. Current month consumption is 5.3 million kilowatt hours over last year's August consumption. The graph on page 10 reports the water consumption. For the month of August 2006, the water consumption decreased approximately 56.7 million gallons from last month's consumption, a 10% decrease. The August 2006 water consumption also represents a decrease from last year of 38.1 million gallons. The graph on page 11 reports the wastewater flows. For the month of August 2006, the wastewater flows decreased approximately 43.3 million gallons from last month, an 11% decrease. The August 2006 wastewater flows represent an increase from last year's of 1.1 million gallons. The The last slide on page 12 provides the status of the year-to-date capital expenditures by utility and funding source. As of August 2006, the actual capital expenditures were $14 million, of which the majority of $8.1 million came from the improvement fund. Another $10.4 million has been encumbered by either POs or invoices for existing or new projects, bringing the total year-to-date expenditures to $24.5 million.
John, or Leandro, the 14 million compared to the 40 million, we used 34.7% of what was approved. Is it something that we're going to have to do anyway? The money's there and we're going to spend it, or?
Yeah, the money will be rolling over into the current year as ongoing projects.
So you're looking to rolling it over, is not spending it this year?
Yes, we'll be spending it in '07. Since we didn't spend it,
Yeah, because you're way under.
more than likely, the September numbers will be closer to the 40%. So we'll have 60% of the 40 million carrying over into '07.
This $24.5 million represents a 60.5% of the $40.4 million approved capital spending plan. This concludes the financial presentation for the month of August 2006. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, on your page 13, on your CIP funding, the annual is 10,700,000. We're almost there, 9,908,000 year to date. We're not gonna go over budget, right? On page 13.
Surplus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's right.
that's,
Okay.
we'd like to have it a lot more.
Okay.
Yeah.
As soon as we meet that contribution of 10.7 million,
Uh-huh.
then it falls into the last bucket, which as of August has 7,649,000.
649.
And that'll be, in the future, we'll be coming to the board for allocation, appropriation of those monies as we need to, as projects are identified.
Thank you.
Leandro, I have a question. On one of the schedules, I guess it's page 1, after that summary by type,
Okay?
after that page,
Page 1, you said?
it's at the right-hand corner, page 1. It's that item number 76, operating consultants outside services. It's on tab 2.
Right.
I guess it's the third page on tab 2. On item number 76, that operating consultant outside services, that's the difference between year-to-date budget, what was approved, and then the actual, that 2.2 million difference. Do you anticipate using that money going all the way up to the budget, or?
The 2.2 million underspending, some of it is probably encumbered, where we have actual POs pending, if it was for engineering services or legal services, and they will carry over into '07 as encumbered amounts.
Uncovered amounts.
So we may spend them in '07, not knowing what the '06 number, the September numbers were.
Okay.
It's going to be less, but some of it will carry into 2007
To 2007, okay.
as ongoing contracts.
Yeah, but it just carries over like in the past, we haven't been able to do that. We just
Any more questions, gentlemen?
save it, we keep it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to...
Hold on, Robert, I got one more item
Got
under
one
my
more?
report.
Okay.
I wanted Eduardo
good.
Camperano just to talk on our strategic planning process, as we told the board that that's going to be a priority for this year, to develop our strategic plan. Just wanted to kind of brief the board on what was done in the past and where we're going forward. So,
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this will be a presentation. It's going to be certainly an emphasis for this coming fiscal year, has been discussed with the board. The agenda for this presentation will discuss strategic planning, its purpose, review a little bit about what we've done in the past in terms of the PUB strategic plans, the comments from the organizational assessment that related to strategic planning, and then what we as staff would look at next steps. Strategic planning. The strategic planning conceptually is a management tool. It's used to help an organization do a better job. It's used to focus the organization's energy, to ensure that members of the organization are working towards the same goals, assess and adjust the organization's direction in response to changing environment. This kind of captures the essence of what we're trying to do. It's a disciplined effort to produce fundamental decisions and actions that shape and guide what an organization is, what it does, and why it does it, with a focus on the future. Our past strategic planning efforts have included, in 1997, we did the PUB Vision 2000, mapping our game plan, and then in 2001, we did the 2001 strategic plan. In 1997, that Vision 2000, mapping our game plan, this is a little bit of illustration of how it was done. The planning committee consisted of the executive management team. The PUB board approved the plan. It contained, developed strategic vision and mission statements. It identified strategic strengths and challenges. It set goals, and it provided a framework for staff to develop the action plans to accomplish those goals. In 2001, again, the planning team consisted of the executive management. The plan was presented to the PUB board. It developed the vision. It developed a core purpose for the organization, a mission for the organization, mission statement, what were the core values of the organization. It set the strategic goals, and again, it provided emphasis for the board or the staff to develop the action plans necessary to implement the plans. The vision of the 2000 strategic plan or 2001 plan was to be recognized as a competitive utility in the electric, water, and wastewater businesses. The emphasis on that was to do that by providing value to customers, by enhancing the way we do business, by becoming efficient, by maintaining a strong financial position, and creating an energetic and challenging work climate. The mission statement contained in the plan was to create value for customers and the community as a provider of choice for utility services. And most recently, in our September meeting, the board added comments and related to the mission statement that certainly as part of this process will be visited, and is to provide efficient electric, water, and wastewater utilities at the lowest rate possible. In the 2001 statement for that, we looked at how are we going to accomplish this. Some of the tasks for that were to be innovative and aggressive, preserving local service and decision making. That's very important to this utility. Offering multiple services, maintaining high business standards, providing personalized service at competitive prices, remaining flexible to customer needs, and empowering employees to serve the customer. The PUB commitment in making that happen was to provide reliable, competitive, cost-effective, and locally controlled utility services, to direct decisions and actions to the welfare of the greater Brownsville community, to provide reasonable economic and other tangible returns from its business operations to the Brownsville community, and to serve its customers, the City of Brownsville, and community partners. The core purpose under the 2001 plan was to partner with the community to improve the standard and quality of life. And to do that, we identified core values that included exemplifying integrity, practice safely, and work smartly, persevere in our beliefs, embrace a competitive spirit, promote social and environmental responsibility, and recognize employee contributions. The strategic issues contained in the 2001 plan centered on governance, management, and leadership, customer service, supply, delivery, and collection, community, regional, international relations, financial resources, and employee and support services. I will briefly go through these. Governance, management, and leadership. The framework was to plan for management succession, manage PUB like a competitive business, develop cross-functional cooperation within the organization, establish a cohesive leadership amongst the board, management, and employees, and plan for deregulation of the electric utility industry. In the area of customer service, to improve customer service performance, some of the things that were done and have been accomplished in the past, and this is just a touch on each of them, is established a call center, upgraded the Kayenta customer service billing system, information system, payment options to include online payments, additional pay stations. In the area of supply, delivery, and collection, for the electric supply future, we have included the acquisition of Silas Ray Unit 10. That unit went online in December 24th of 2004. And of course, something that you all have been following is the additional Oakley Union acquisition. In the area of water supply delivery and collection, prepare for future water supply delivery. Since the adoption of the plan, the completion of the Southmost Regional Water Authority desalination plant, of course, the Brownsville Matamoros Weir project remains, and the seawater desalination pilot plant project. In the area of electric transmission, distribution and collection systems, again, construction of the raw water reservoir is a water project. In addition to constructed the electric Palo Alto substation and continue to work towards upgrading the transmission system from the 69 kV to 139 kV. In the area of continued with the power supply, the development of the energy risk management policy, and creating of an energy risk oversight committee. Community, regional, and international relations. Part was to look to form strategic alliances. In the regional water projects, we have the Southmost Regional Water Authority. We are part of the Rio Grande Regional Water Planning Group, Region M, the Brownsville Matamoros Weir Project, and the Lower Rio Grande Water Committee.
Let me ask you something.
Yes, sir.
This might sound off the wall, what am I asking? But is building the security fence going to affect us any in the management of the river or access to it, or any, is it going to adversely affect us in any way?
We don't know that yet.
I mean, has it crossed your mind in any way?
If it has an impact, the biggest concern would be where we have our intake facilities. If it does provide for you know, having to make some significant changes there, then it could be an adverse impact. I mean, keep in mind.
I suggest that whoever's going to be handling this, that we be in touch with them and let them know we're interested in how it's going to affect us. Because let me tell you, people in Washington make decisions, and it sounds good, but they don't know that this is our backyard, you know. And for them, it's a problem. For us, it's something that we enjoy and we've had. This is one of 5 mightiest rivers in the world, and they're going to destroy it, in my opinion, with building a fence. You're going to take the view. You're going to affect the wildlife. You're going to affect a lot of things, and it may even affect PUB. Now, I am for controlling our border and security and all that, but I don't think they really know how it affects us. So be sure they get an earful from you, you know, if it is going to adversely affect us.
Point well taken. Again, just from not knowing what the details are or anything like that, one of the areas that is always of concern is our intake facilities, which are, as you know, right down on the river. So that'll be something to watch for. Continuation on the community, regional, international relations, to develop an environmental stewardship program. Some of the results of that have been to implement the Trade a Tree program in a partnership with the City of Brownsville, participate in the tree planting guide. Again, it's City of Brownsville cooperation, as well as the Valley Proud Environmental Council, and develop the environmental stewardship report. On the legislative side of the agenda, things that we do, again, our active participation. In fact, Mr. Brusiak is the board chair of the Texas Public Power Association. Participation in not only in being part of ERCOT, but in also participating in their rulemaking, the ERCOT, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, the American Membrane Technology Association, and also the Rio Grande Regional Water Authority, again, which Mr. Brusiak serves as a board member, and the Affordable Desalination Collaboration. In the area of financial resources, the goal was to maintain self-sufficiency of the businesses, each utility independently, the electric, water, and the wastewater utilities. Each utility continues to achieve self-sufficiency. Contain and reduce operation and maintenance costs. This fits right in line with your question, Mr. Almada, on the current budget being roughly $2.5 million under budget. Continue to meet basic operational requirements. continue to meet and exceed operating and improvement reserve requirements, and continue to maintain balanced budget with year-end positive ending balances. The reduce and restructure short-term debt and long-term debt, that was accomplished in the plan that was enacted last summer. We reduced variable rate exposure, increased reserve funds, received improved ratings, Moody's to A2, Standard & Poor's to A, and Fitch to A. In the area of employee and support resources, develop an employee compensation plan. We have the Watson-wide compensation plan that we keep going back to and discussed here many times. It conducted a job market analysis and established the pay plan which we currently have. Of course, through the board's generosity, we implemented a cost of living increase, and we also updated the pay matrix. Employee and support resources, continuation, development of management information systems. We've implemented the GIS system and projects. It includes the Minor designer engineering software, which is a tool for our design engineers, the Azteca work order system, and the fixed asset program that ties in not only to the work orders as well as the financial management, and upgraded the Banner financial system. The PUB organizational assessment. The comments related to strategic planning in the assessment were to update and maintain the strategic plan as a living document, to involve supervisors and employees in the planning process, and extend planning process to all divisions. As we go forward, we will take those comments and we will utilize them to developing how we proceed on the plan. What are the next steps? As we see them, the next steps were to prepare for the planning, and that is going to be an effort that will have to be initiated. We propose to contract a strategic planning consultant. Again, we do not propose to hire a consulting firm to do the strategic plan, but to hire an individual that would help us and guide us through the process and be a facilitator and an asset to us in the process. And of course, to initiate the strategic planning process. Prepare for planning. We want to obtain a formal commitment from the Board of Directors. And this will be a commitment of time and resources. We do feel it's important to engage the board, especially in our vision setting and looking at what you see as where this utility needs to go into the future. Selecting a strategic planning committee. This would be primarily, again, made up of within the PUB staff. And it would be, it'll utilize various staff being mindful of the comments from the organizational assessment to be from top to bottom. Develop a work plan that outlines who is responsible for each outcome and the timeframes necessary to implement, and to allocate the adequate resources in terms of both dollars and time. We envision the consultant's role as being one to assist in the design and management of the strategic planning process. By doing so, it would be providing guidance on the planning process and facilitate planning meetings with the PUB board and staff, organize meetings, draft documents, conduct interviews and other tasks, and provide knowledge or skills, including evaluation of programs, services, and management functions. The strategic planning methodology would relate along setting the groundwork. Again, this would be going through the process. We envision the product of this setting groundwork to include the work plan. We would look at adequate mission and vision statement, and that is it's particularly important, the board's participation in this process, and that's to articulate the mission and the vision of the organization, and the product that we see, an outcome of that would be to have the draft mission statement and the draft vision statement. We would have to assess the situation, again, obtain the current information to make sure that the issues that we identify, that we could substantially quantify them and support them with valid data. Again, the product of this effort would be to have a database of quality information that can be used to make decisions and list of critical issues and demand a response and prepare a response from the organization. The most important of these would be how are we going to deal with the issues that are identified. The development of the strategies, goals, and objectives. Again, this is critical to taking the steps that we've taken to date and developing what goals, how are we going to implement those goals, what are the objectives to accomplish those. And the outcome of this exercise would be essentially the development of the strategic direction for PUB. And lastly, to develop the strategic plan. And that's to reduce all of the effort and the board's involvement, the staff's involvement, reduce it to writing into a document that can be reviewed and acted upon. The strategic planning methodology, of course, would then be to implement the strategic plan. That would be accompanied with the necessary annual operating plans that would correspond to each fiscal year with each organizational unit, and developing how we're going to monitor the strategic plan and its accomplishments, developing the tools necessary to provide for monthly meetings, monthly reports, and to provide a means for being able to engage in the discussions as to whether or not we are accomplishing our goals and our objectives. What we'd like to do at our next board meeting is come back to the board and present the timetable to the board of directors for proceeding on the steps to get going on the strategic planning process. And with your support and direction, then we would proceed to implementation. But at the next meeting, again, we'd like to present the timeline for that. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to attempt to address them.
Mr. Chairman and Eddie and John and staff and the board here, I really want to congratulate everybody here because we've come a long ways in the 2 years I've been here. I know it's been difficult sometimes, but we've made a lot of improvement, and it's because we've worked as a team. We've had disagreements or whatever, but we've improved things, and I want to thank everybody for making it possible. Eddie, the only thing I want to point out is that, you know, in our planning, it's all good to be proactive, but we need to make sure that we're getting input from everybody. Okay? That way, we're not leaving out anything, and we're planning on everything like we should to be proactive. That way, a hurricane comes or expansion needs to be done, or safety risk matters are taken into account, or we're not reacting, you know, to those things like lawsuits and stuff like that. Y'all are doing it.
Well, and if you recall, you know, one of the comments in the organizational assessment was exactly that in order to put us on the track of being proactive and not reactive is to really rededicate ourselves to the strategic planning process and to begin to look forward and not always be looking to catch up.
I appreciate what you guys do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Campirano. Now we're going to move on to item number 3. And before we move on, I want to just mention, you know, I want to thank the president of the PEDC, Jason Hills, the secretary, Jenny Velasquez, and the chairman of the board, Mr. McCumber, for working with me as the representative of the Brownsville Public Utilities Board at the Brownsville Economic Development Council. I have completed my 1-year term. Here is item number 3, consideration and action on a resolution appointing a representative of the Brownsville Public Utilities Board to the Board of Directors of the Brownsville Economic Development Council.
Mr. Chairman, you know, you've been gracious enough to serve at the BEDC, and I've always stressed that as a board, we work as a team here, and we should all have an opportunity to find out more about the utility system, more about the community. And I strongly feel that this is a position that, nothing against you, please.
No problem.
I strongly feel that this is a position that should be rotated amongst the board members.
I agree.
Well, I'm glad you agree, because I know what it is to serve in a board, and I know you learned something from being there. But I think another person should have an opportunity to serve and learn and bring it back to the PUB also, you know? Yes. Just like the chair, I think it should be rotated for the same reason. So based on that, unless somebody has an objection, and I don't think they'll have an objection, because I think he has a background and he'd be a good representative of PUB on the BEDC board, I would like to nominate Al Verreal if he's willing to accept it.
I second.
Well, I don't know if he's willing to accept it.
He nodded yes over there. No, okay.
But you're not gonna get mad at me for doing this
No,
to you later.
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And I would agree too. We have a motion on the floor. A motion made by Mr. Almohada, seconded by Mr. Guerra. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Congratulations, Al.
Thank you.
You're the new Brownsville Economic Development Council board member.
Don't get mad.
We move on to item number 4, consideration and approval of construction contract award for a 16-inch water line loop in southeast Brownsville. Mrs. Gomez.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as part of the Water Master Plan update performed by Turner, Colley, and Braden, it was determined that a 16-inch water line loop would be needed to meet the current and projected demands for the southeast portion of the city. PUB engineering staff hired AGH consulting engineers to prepare construction plans for this project. An invitation to bid was advertised in the Herald on August the 27th and September the 3rd. Invitation to bid was also mailed out to 17 contractors and 4 planning rooms. A total of 6 contractors responded. The contractors are Cupco Construction, Science Utility Construction, Rico Construction, GB Klossner and Sons, R&R Paving, and Donald D. Ferguson. Cupco Construction was the lowest qualified bidder with a bid of $1,339,796, and PUB staff recommends awarding the 16-inch water line loop construction project to Cupco Construction for an amount not to exceed of $1,339,796.
How much?
$1,339,796.
You had submitted one before that, had you not?
That's one of the
Yellow is the correct one.
And that's the lowest bidder?
Yes,
And how many bidders were there?
6.
Okay. I have no problem with it.
I make a motion, we accept recommendation.
Second?
We have a motion made by Mr. Guerra, a second by Mr. Villarreal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to move on to the consent items, 1 through 5. And I'll go ahead and read the first one. Report on travel for the Brownsville Public Utility Board employees. Mr. Campirano. It's a consent item, okay. Any questions, board? Okay, can I,
I'll make a motion to approve 1 through 5 unless somebody has some questions.
The only question I have is on number 2.
Yes,
So I'd like, if we could do everything but number 2.
okay,
What is this about?
No, I would like to
Table it?
have a presentation on number 2, I'm sorry. But I would move to approve 1, 3, 4, and 5. Is that okay?
Yeah, we can do that right this time.
is that okay, Ben?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Villarreal and a second by Mr. Guerra to approve
1, 3, 4.
1, 3,
4 and 5.
4, and 5 on the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We now move to consent agenda item number 2, consideration and approval of a resolution requesting for the Public Utility Board of Brownsville, Texas to make current service and prior service contributions to the Public Utility Board's account in the Municipal Accumulation Fund of the Texas Municipal Retirement System at the actuarially determined rate of total employee compensation. Leandro?
Yes, members of the board, this item, at the request of TMRS to municipalities throughout the state of Texas, is being requested to officially increase PUB's contribution to Texas Municipal Retirement System. There are some statutory limits based on the levels of matching requirements that have been established. For PUB, we do a matching of 1.5 to 1 at the 7%. There's a statutory maximum of 11.5% that officially we can contribute up to that amount, but then if actuarially we're required to based on years of service and the makeup, the study of our plan, if actuarially we're required to contribute a little bit more, which for 2007 has been set at 11.57, then TMRS has requested municipalities to adjust the contribution by each entity adopting a resolution. City of Brownsville was facing the same situation. A couple of weeks ago, they approved as well a motion to adjust the contribution level to what TMRS and their actuaries are recommending. So in this case, fulfilling the request to up the contribution would satisfy GASB 27 and any disclosure requirements concerning a potential for falling behind in contributions and funding levels. So this is more of a housekeeping situation. We are contributing the required actuarial contribution, but we need to make it official by the board adopting a resolution.
We approved budget-wise 1.5.
Yeah, the matching doesn't change,
That's not
but based on the historical assessment and the makeup of the participants in the retirement system,
That's not going to change.
actuarially, sometimes the requirements exceed what we statutorily have been, the maximum has been set at. So even though the employee contributes 7%, and we match 10.5, which is a 1.5 to 1, we also contribute a little bit more for administrative maintenance of the plan and for keeping the plan actuarially sound. So our contribution for 2007 will be 11.57.
What was it in 2006?
2006, I think it was 11.54, 53. It went up a little bit.
Now, when you say statutory maximum of 11.5, what do you mean by statutory maximum?
There is a as part of the overall plan, when TMRS laid it out to qualify it, I guess, as a retirement plan for participants for various cities, municipalities participate in, they laid out based on a city's contribution matching a maximum contribution that the cities would eventually, I guess, could not exceed. Unfortunately, investments and other issues with retirement systems have come into play, and contributions are needing to be increased based on, or to keep from falling behind in terms of funding and disclosure requirements pursuant to some GASB disclosure requirements. So it's more to ensure that the plan, that our plan, stays healthy and doesn't fall behind.
Okay.
So it's statutory with regards to how the overall TMRS was established to legislation and how it was laid out to different cities in terms of what their maximums will be based on the level of contributions.
And just for my information, who prepared the resolution?
The resolution comes recommended by TMRS, so it's language prescribed by TMRS that'll meet their requirements. We'll submit it to them for further affecting the change.
No, I just saw that statutory limit, and we were going to exceed that by a fraction. I just wanted to make sure that we were allowed to do that it wasn't anything that required any additional approvals or anything like that.
Just the board adopting the resolution and then us conveying it to TMRS that we will contribute in excess of the statutory limit based on the new actuarial limits.
Okay, thank you.
I need a motion, I believe.
I move that we approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Varela, seconded by Mr. Guerra. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. I need a motion to close the meeting.
But do we have no public speakers?
None of these public speakers here present?
I make a motion, then we close the meeting.
Second, we adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Guerra, seconded by Mr. Varela. Meeting closed. Thank you.